Welcome to another episode of the Global Green Action Project, a place where we get to meet amazing heroes doing great changes in the world to make it a more compassionate, kinder place through animal, humanitarian, and environmental initiatives. I'm your host, Jennifer, and today we get to meet another amazing guest speaker. She is a professor, scientist, lobbyist, and advocate for all things water and its sustainability in our world. She is on a mission to help support our global family so that we can be part of the change and also to empower other thought leaders, scientists, and educators to further their mission of water quality so that we can work in global community and ensure that we have sustainable quality water for years to come for all life on this planet. Our special guest today is the amazing DrCat Shrier. She is also known as the virtual water leader mentor and host of the Water Show. So as you can see, she has many qualifications to share and an incredible mission that we can all be part of. So without ado, let's now introduce you to her now and find ways that we can be part of this amazing journey for healing of our planet and for all. Welcome to our show today, and we're really looking forward to learning more about the amazing initiative that you have that is a global initiative to help support so much healing in this world. So, having said all that, I'm going to let you discuss a little bit further about what you're doing in terms of how you're helping and how we can support you. So, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always great to have a chance to sit and chat with you, Jennifer. I really enjoy the work that you're doing as well. Congratulations on your books and just and on the show. It's really important that we get the word out in so many different formats about what's going on with water and the environment and building a more sustainable world.
It's it's such an important subject, and a lot of people, especially in Western society, we take water for granted. We think of it as just something that comes out of the faucet and that's it. But there's so much more involved with water in our world. And especially now more than ever, with all these unprecedented times, we really need to start looking at sustainability in a whole new way. And what you're offering is incredible. It's an opportunity for us to not only be educated, but take action to make these enduring positive changes to help everybody on this planet in the most amazing ways. So, having said that, I'd like to learn a little bit more about your story, sort of how you got to where you are today.
And for those who may not know, I'm DrCat Shrier. I'm the founder of WaterCitizen Media and the WaterCitizen Foundation, where we empower water leaders and innovators, water and environmental professionals, and actors, community leaders to uh, to better get their stories out and better get educational programs and events that are really high engagement and effective. People who are feeling very frustrated, especially since COVID, because they're not really feeling like they're able to connect with people the way they would in ways, how they can really leverage the internet to do a better job on water related topics. So, and how I got into that is I actually started out sort of in the political world. I always knew I wanted to be in some aspects of public service. I was interning for my state legislator by the time I was a junior in high school. I spent time on Capitol Hill, but I wanted to do something more tangible, and so after working for a state senator in Virginia for a while, I took a position at an environmental consulting firm, and I was looking at what they were doing there, and it's like, oh my goodness, this is actual on the ground making a difference. This is a contaminated site, and we figure out the problem is, we figure out the solution, we put the solution in place, and boom, we've got usable land again. And so this was this really attracted me, this very tangible aspect of working water in the environment is the opportunity to really make a difference in a very tangible way. Okay. So, and water, of course, being connected to so many things. It's not just the water we drink. It's also, it also affects every aspect of, you can't have any kind of infrastructure without thinking about the water flows and whether it's flooding or contamination. When you're dealing with water related disasters, with hurricanes, even droughts and fires are tied in with water and the impacts of they say floods follow the fire, right? So when you have fire burning things out, suddenly everything gets washed down and washed into your water resources. So there's lots of different water connections all around. So people who think about water and the environment too tend to be very holistic and systems oriented and put a lot of pieces together, which does not always work very well when you want to create a short, simple message.
It's a very deep conversation, isn't it?
And our thing at WaterCitizen is really about the people, the human side of water, the people who are actually actively engaged either as water and environmental professionals or what we call active volunteers, board members, people volunteering to put together a community garden or doing a river cleanup. There's a lot of people who put extensive time, money, and effort into their local watersheds, as well as those who have formal training or work in a water related organization, an agency, a utility, consulting firm, a university research institute, for example. But all of them, they're working so hard to try to create a better world. And yet they often have not been taught, it's not that they're not capable, but they have not been taught how to communicate what it is they do and how to help others to learn what they do in a way that is clear and simple and direct. And it is designed to attract the people who are most interested in what they do.
And that is such a powerful tool when we can educate the scientists and the action takers to be able to communicate clearly their message. Then they're able to onboard other people and get them involved in these amazing initiatives. And that's ultimately what your mission is, isn't it?
Absolutely. These are the solution makers. We have done a terrific job of communicating the global water crisis and the American infrastructure crisis and all the stuff, anything from lead pipes and even tying in with COVID hotspots being where we don't have running water, or good plumbing or sanitation, that we really pounded the problems. And that was actually very deliberate. I was 10, 15 years ago here in Washington, D.C., I was working with a lot of the top leaders in the water space, the heads of the utilities, the big associations, the big water organizations that, we see some major problems coming down the pipe. We need to be able to get some momentum. We started doing our water is sexy buttons because people would go on Capitol Hill and they'd say, oh, we're trying to get support for this bill or that bill, but nobody will sign on to anything about water because water isn't sexy. And I was like, well, haven't you ever seen Flashdance? From Here to Eternity? Of course, water is sexy. It's just how we present it. So we started working with policymakers and industry leaders and helping them to reframe how they talked about it. But part of it was just hiring a lot of PR folks and professional communications people who would kind of dumb down water and focus on the crisis. Oh my God, this global water crisis. And it is really important. But in the process, we have created this whole phenomenon of eco-anxiety. I mean, that is actually a diagnosable condition. I mean, you look at, we see Greta coming over, across the Atlantic, sailing over to the United Nations and shaking her finger and saying, "You're not doing anything. You failed. You haven't done anything." And it is important that we teach kids to be activists, but also to understand that there are solutions, people who are working on solutions, and we need to be working to help further those solutions. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to work with those people who are not just highlighting the problems, but working on the solutions and teaching others what it is that they do.
Yeah, good points. And so inspiring. And it's so interesting that you bring up that they actually have created this name for eco-anxiety, which is fascinating. Oh my goodness. We're living in a state of so much anxiety overall, just on so many various levels in this day and age. And now to add to that, we have eco-anxiety. Isn't that fascinating?
Just shutting down because they're so worried about climate change, and everything's falling apart and it's bigger than I can get. There's no solutions. What can I do? And people just kind of shut down.
Yeah, and that's part of the fight or flight reaction, isn't it? Instinctively, we can either go into the shutdown mode or we can run. Either way, it's unproductive to solving a problem in this instant, right? It's not like we're having a lion running after us per se. So we need to really truly be mindful and be able to sit down and educate ourselves and be able to take action. And these wonderful leaders that you are training to be able to do just that is
Yeah.
such what an empowering program that you have. I'd love to learn more about how that works. Would you care?
Absolutely. Yeah. And we have been so lucky to have some really incredible folks come out for our programs. And to be clear, we actually started this over 10 years ago. I'd come to Capitol Hill after years with big consulting firms and agencies and universities, and was doing this big program for National Academy of Sciences. I had served on a National Academy of Sciences study committee on this technology where we store water underground, and there were issues about, well, this EPA regulation and whether they could get permitted or not. And so we put together this forum, and there were people out in California who said, we really want to be part of this. We just can't get there. The time and the money and effort, it would cost as much for us to pay for a live stream. This was 2008. People weren't doing live streams back then. And so we set up the live stream like in the last few days before the event. We let people know, and suddenly we had people all over the place who were able to be a part of this event. And I just sort of, after years of doing water planning and, bringing together in the room, the cities and the farmers and the environmental groups and the oil companies, and getting everyone singing Kumbaya and working together on managing our watershed or whatever the problem was, I looked at the camera, and I actually talked to our virtual audience. And when we got to the Q&A at the end of each part of the program, I asked them for their questions and actually recognized, said, oh, we have a question here from Jennifer, and she's asking about this, and so you've just you've been working on that. Can you answer that Jennifer's question? And after that, everything just lit up. People actually knew that we were paying attention to them. And right now with COVID, people are starting to talk about the future of virtual events. How effective can we be at virtual conference and virtual meetings, virtual workshops, forums, charrettes, convenings of every shape and form? And what's going to happen after we are actually able to start going back in the room? And some organizations are actually starting to do live meetings again. But there's still those who are not yet ready to go into a live meeting space. And even afterwards, people are realizing finally what an opportunity we have to include a lot more people when we go virtual.
It's really, really exciting when you say that because, we're talking about global society. This defines that global society in a whole new, in-depth, rich way. And I can only imagine how exciting that must be for you with your mission.
Yes.
I'd love to hear maybe a story that you might wish to share in terms of like an example of how that has transpired in terms of your mission in helping support maybe communities that might not have had the same accessibility in the past.
One of our first people to sign up. Love this guy. Uh, Frank is one of the top He's one of the top consultants in the country when it comes to supply chain related to water. So any kind of government process, and for the Army or for the COVID vaccination rollout, he's the guy to figure out any limiters related to water. But his passion is gardening. And so he has created is he works with the master gardeners, and in fact he's one of their instructors for the master gardener programs. And so he is developing a program on climate smart gardens. How do you create climate smart gardens? So that's one example of where we're already starting to hear from master gardeners who want to help with his survey. And from there, we're going to be developing, co-creating with the WaterCitizen Academy, an amazing program that we'll be able to host. Another one is John from Uganda he's a teacher, and he and his wife had founded a school in rural Uganda, and they were educating children in the region. It was a very successful school. And then COVID hit. What happened to schools during COVID? They all shut down, right?
Wasn't pretty.
So suddenly, what were they going to do now that they couldn't have their school anymore? Well, they got their community together and they created fish farms. So they figured out how to do this. They dug up these sites. They've got a pump system that doesn't even require fuel, and they have been, they seeded it with fish, and they've been selling fish and providing protein source foods for folks in the area. And what he wants to do now is work with us on creating a course to teach other people how to create their own fish farms, which not only is going to help other communities and people, whether they want it for their own, to know where their own fish is coming from, and there's no red tide or anything else, have their own literally locally sourced fish, feed their communities. But at the same time, the money from those courses is really going to help their community, which has been hit quite hard by the Delta variant. We do also have, so some of them are more directed at, individuals or homeowners or local communities, but we also have a number of people with more of a consulting background who are focusing on small and economically disadvantaged utilities. We've got one, who often virtual can be a really great tool there, because often they can't go to conference after conference after conference. They only have a few people on staff anyway, so they can't really lose people all the time to be traveling to conferences. And yet they need to be up on the latest and greatest of, what are the major issues, new contaminants, new funding sources. So we've had the head of an environmental consulting firm, a CEO of an environmental consulting firm, who created a program on water asset management. A lot of the big utilities are doing. The small utilities need to do that as well. Figure out, what assets they have, the pipes, pumps, the treatment systems, the plants, what needs to be updated. And there's funding available for small and economically disadvantaged utilities. Same thing for drought planning. We've got another who's working on conflict resolution. A lot of these smaller entities just don't have the internal skills, and we can help raise the capacity of all the utilities throughout the U.S. Because wherever you go, somebody's providing your water supply, somebody is taking care of your wastewater, somebody is taking care of your flood management, somebody is taking care of your stormwater.
Some really good points. And again, not everybody thinks of it that way, right? They take water for granted. And so it's so important to know that there are people out there who are taking care of our water, our source of life, and sustainability is such a big part of that, isn't it? To have that fresh, clean water so that we can live ultimately. And having said that, I'm just trying to think of how we can support you in your initiatives in terms of local and global community that we could be part of, that we are actually helping and taking action to support your mission.
So one step is get in touch with us if you or if someone from your local water utility irrigation district, we've worked with Ducks Unlimited, we work with Gray Water Action, your favorite nonprofits. If they have something really valuable to share, have them reach out to us and we can work together on developing an actual course around what they do. I think it's so critical when people figure it out, when people do something right, to share that with others. And we can do that very effectively with online courses. It's really particularly important for researchers and nonprofits that are doing research on better ways to do this or that, or universities and whatnot. And so often they put all their time, money, and effort into doing the research, and then they'll create some long, glossy report, and they turn it into a PDF and stick it on their website and say, ta-da! How many people actually go to a website and download and learn from even when people do download and read it? That's not engagement. That's not education. And so we've actually started reaching out to some of the larger nonprofits that get these giant grants. I mean, the biggest funders, the Gates Foundation and Walton Family Foundation and all these big funders, a lot of them focus on water related issues, and they give up big chunks of money to organizations to do some study, do some research. And then how do we disseminate that research? This is actually something I used to do for university water institutes a lot. Researchers are taught, you present your findings at a conference. Maybe if you're into the public policy stuff, you go talk to some, congressional staff or state legislature or something like that. But they don't think about how to take their reports and turn it into something that's really useful and interactive, and then how to find those people who want to access that information. Because when we're in a virtual room, we can bring people together from all over the place.
Yes, that's very exciting. I'm just sitting here thinking about all the possibilities in terms of how far one's mission, one's research can be taken when you have these amazing minds sitting down from all parts of the world on Zoom, and then they can just sit down and assess the needs and just make things happen. They can take those action steps.
You can really stretch it out instead of having people set aside one full day. And there is a place for a 1-day workshop or a 3-day workshop. But you can also sort of spread it out over a series of weeks and get together over a period of weeks and say, have people have an action step to take each week, so that by the end of, say, 6 weeks, you've really started to build some momentum. And then you can take people to the next level, right? So whether you're trying to get buyers or buying, you really want to have that time to build that relationship, that common understanding, that common commitment to a larger mission.
Having said that, I'm thinking to myself, you're mentioning funding a few times. How can we support you with funding? Because you mentioned that we can support if we know of any non-for-profit organizations and so on in our areas, to send them your way. But what about funding? Perhaps there's a way to support you there.
Yeah, and we are right now, our focus has been on actual funding through the enrollments that we get in our programs. And we are definitely open to grant funding, to donations. We're actually working with a business school right now to set up all the the proper sites and all the information that we need to provide to potential donors and all that other fun stuff. But absolutely, any donations that we get goes right into those programs and really helps us to be able to, for example, with the student from Uganda, we actually provided him a scholarship in the program. Once we get so many registrations, we're able to open that up to a scholarship recipient who's just not in a position to be able to actually pay for the registrations. And so that, that really helps us to continue to grow. And we're really at this point, we've done this program twice very successfully, and we're really looking to grow very quickly because the need is so much greater. The longer we have to stay online, the need for water and environmental professionals to know how to be impactful, to know how to be effective, to stop being, frustrated and just feeling misunderstood because they're on these conference calls and at these conferences that are basically just pre-recorded Zoom presentations, or even if they're live, their audience is all in chat and they can't see faces. They can't connect with people. They definitely can't have people come up to them afterwards. That's where so much of what happens at a water conference occurs, is all the little meetings in the hallway. And let's go grab a cup of coffee. Let's go have lunch together, right? Well, we have a reception for our consulting firm. Come meet us there, right? Or especially the people who actually do show up to your presentation, who come up to you afterwards, and they're there because they want to learn more. So we teach people. That's another program we actually have in the works, is a virtual water speaker lab, where people will learn how to attract people into their session, how to engage during the session, how to know what to say, what people are thinking, so they can incorporate that into their presentation. And then especially, really important, how to take them the next step.
Really exciting stuff. I mean, it's so needed. I mean, when we empower the educator and the researcher to be able to truly communicate their message out in the world, the mission is expedited and we ultimately get greater success overall.